All right, looks good.
Great.
Super. So, well, thank you for taking some time with me today. I wanted to congratulate you on your new book, which is very appropriately titled "Rock and Roll Warrior." Why did you decide that now is the time? There it is to tell your story.
Well, over the last few years, a lot of people have been saying to me, you got a lot of great stories. You've lived a really interesting life. Why don't you write a book? I never really took it all that seriously. And then about 3 years ago, my girlfriend said, you know what? They're right. You do have a story to tell. You should write a book. And I suppose that was the impetus for me to take a more serious look and maybe go ahead and start to put it together. So that
Nice.
was that was the start of it all, and that's a little more than a little less than 3 years ago. And had I known what an overwhelming endeavor it is to really write a book, I might have thought twice about it. But too late now. I've already written it.
Right. And it's out, which is great. I got a chance. I'm about halfway through it. So, what a fascinating story. Now, you've pretty much done it all in the music business, from being a songwriter to a performer, to the tour manager, of course, and then end up being a promoter. How did you know you wanted to have a career in the music industry and then actually stay there? Most people don't stay for the 60 years plus years you've been in it.
Well, I started out as a musician and uh, pursued that. And in the course of being in the band that I was in, the Happenings, and we had a few hit records, and we achieved some success in the mid to late '60s. I was also the manager of the band. We managed ourselves, and I assumed most of the managerial responsibilities of doing so. And I liked it. I was dealing with record companies and booking agencies, concert promoters, publicity firms. And the music world was really changing at that time. FM radio, which was mostly up until that moment a pretty much unlistened to radio frequency band, all of a sudden came into prominence, and it was the conduit for listening to new types of bands that were coming of age. These mostly AM unfriendly, album oriented bands that wrote their own songs and played their own instruments. And the Happenings had evolved into playing. I was always a musician, so I always played instrument, but the rest of the guys ended up becoming musicians as well as just being singers. But our music was sort of this syrupy pop AM friendly type of music, and I felt that we were going to have a difficult time surviving unless we evolved into something more contemporary. I wanted to take our harmony techniques, which is what we did best,
Sure.
and apply it to more contemporary um, song structures, sort of like what Crosby, Stills, and Nash was doing at that time.
Mhm.
And the other guys in the Happenings really weren't interested in doing that. They thought that they could uh, play colleges and nightclubs, which is what we were playing at that time. They felt they could do that for the next 25 years. They really didn't want to change. And I saw the writing on the wall. I didn't want to do that. And since I now had some experience in managing the band, I started to realize, you know what? Maybe I can manage other bands or be a booking agent or work for a record company. I was pretty sure at that point that I couldn't be a Happening forever. And that's how I transitioned from uh, being in a band to being in the business end of the music biz.
Gotcha. Very good. Yeah. So like you said, you did have some hits with the band. I think what, four top 20 hits. What was it like touring at that time? in the 60s, and who did you tour with?
Well, like I said, we did play a lot of colleges and nightclubs, but we also, in the beginning there, went out on these cavalcade tours, as they used to go. There was Gene Pitney tour,
Okay.
and let's see who was on that. Well, the first tour was the Dick Clark tour, and that had uh, the Capitals, "Cool Jerk," da dun 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 dun, and who else was on that tour? Can't even remember. Oh, the Easy Beats, believe it or not,
Oh, wow.
and several other bands. So it was sort of a bus tour. There were like maybe 8 or 10 acts, and we would travel from city to city. That's was a good thing in the beginning because that's how we got massive exposure playing to 10, 15, 20,000 people a night. The other tour we did after that was the Gene Pitney tour. And who was on that? Lou Christie, the Buckinghams.
Oh.
Um, and it was great. We gained some experience. We were making much money, that's for sure.
Mhm.
But that's what was happening in the mid to late '60s. You were on a tour with several other bands. You get to play 3, maybe 4 songs, and it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun, and it gave us an opportunity, I suppose, to hone our performing skills. So that's what
Sure.
was going on.
Yeah, very good. So like you said, I guess you decided it wasn't happening for you after about what, about 9 years or so?
No, no, no. It didn't take that long to figure it out.
Okay.
I would say maybe within 4 years, I
Oh,
decided uh, to leave the band and pursue other avenues in the music business.
wow, very good. So one of the biggest bands that you started working with pretty much early on was the Alice Cooper band, becoming the road manager. So how did that come about?
Um, After I left the Happenings, I had various jobs. I was working for a management company in New York City. They managed uh, Johnny Maestro and the Brooklyn Bridge,
Oh yeah.
the stair steps. Ooh, child, do you remember
Oh
that?
yeah.
And then I got a job as the house booker for this club out in Long Island. And then I got a job as road manager for Rare Earth. That was a great job. I loved it. They're a great bunch of guys. They put on a super show. They worked mostly weekends, which meant I could live in New York, uh, do the advance on the dates for my apartment in New York City, and then hook up with them on the weekends and go out and do the gigs, and then put them back on a plane to Detroit, and I put myself back on a plane back to New York City. And this went on for several very pleasant months. And then one day I got a call from Johnny Podell, the booking agent for Alice Cooper, and he told me that the band was looking for a new tour manager and would I be interested? And I was. I ended up getting hired, and I remember the first gig was in Atlanta, Georgia, and Shep Gordon, Alice Cooper's manager, said, "Look, just observe and watch what's going on. You'll get the hang of it." I had absolutely no idea what I was supposed to do. There's no job description or a tech manual to refer to. To me, my first impression of it all was 30 some odd crazy, insane looking people crawling all over the gear and equipment like giant insects. And I said, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I left my nice, cushy, easygoing job with Rare Earth for this insanity. I really thought that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But within a few days, I started to get the hang of it. Things started to fall into place, and um, the rest is history. It worked out. I was turned out to be just a a fabulous job and very exciting. And I was glad to be a part of it all. And I would say I from Shep Gordon became my mentor. And I would say that 99% of everything I learned about the music industry, I learned from Shep Gordon. So it
Mm,
was a great job and a
I'm
lot of
sure.
fun. And we traveled all over the world. And uh, that's why it's in the book. It was quite an experience.
Right, absolutely. Now, what did you think of that stage production? Because nobody really had done the stuff that Alice Cooper was doing in the 70s, yeah, and really until Kiss came along and put all the pyro, but his show was totally different and theatrical. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why it looked so crazy to me in the beginning. But all of these people that worked for uh, Alice Cooper, they were professionals. They really knew what they were doing. They took a lot of pride in what they were doing, and you're right. There was a lot of equipment, a lot of props, a lot of events. We before anyone else did, we carried our own sound systems and lighting systems and staging and um, the thing about my job was it was my responsibility to make it all run like a well-oiled machine, and I think I was able to accomplish that. It was a pretty smooth operation, which was a good thing because it was so complicated, and also Shep Gordon would tolerate nothing less than perfection. So I learned priorities. I learned what was important. I learned that the slightest little thing that could go wrong could have a disastrous effect on the whole overall thing. So it taught me responsibility, discipline, uh, how to work with other people. It was great. It was great.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And you have a lot of great Alice stories in the book. Um, can you tell me a little bit about the magic briefcase?
The magic briefcase. Well, whenever we did a U.S. tour, there were always a couple of dates north of the border in Canada. And so the problem became uh, how can we get across the border with drugs? I mean, it wasn't a heavy drug taking tour entourage, but we had weed and I
Mhm.
suppose there was some cocaine and quaaludes, the usual. Uh,
70s.
and certainly in that period of time. And so the dilemma was, uh, how can we cross the border with drugs and not get caught? Well, the answer was you simply can't take the risk of taking any drugs over the border, and which would result in the show being canceled and people getting arrested. This was a business. We just couldn't afford to do that. So I would make everybody the night before we left to go into Canada from the US. I would make everybody come to my room with a little envelope or package of their goodies and to seal it shut and write a name on it like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck, anything but their real name. I would put the sealed envelopes in the magic briefcase, lock it up, and then purposely, accidentally leave it in my hotel room, and I would immediately call the front desk and, oh, I left my briefcase in my room. Can you please grab it right away and hold on to it? And I'll call back and tell you what to do with it. Yes, of course, Mr. Libert, we'll do that. And then I would call the promoter of the town we were just leaving, the U.S. promoter, and say, oh, listen, I just forgot my briefcase in my room. The front desk is holding it. Could you go over there and grab it? And I'll tell you what to do with it. And so that promoter would hold it, and where I would tell him to send it to next would be to the promoter of the next U.S. town we were going to be landing in from Canada. And then he would be waiting at the airport when we landed, hand me the briefcase, and then I would distribute all of the packages and the magic briefcase, and that's how we uh, didn't bring our drugs across the border. And of course, the promoters had no idea what was inside the locked briefcase. So I'm sure you're asking yourself the question, well, what did you do for drugs in Canada? Well,
Right.
what we did was I would tell the promoter in Canada, I said, listen, uh, if you don't want us to bring any drugs over the border, I strongly suggest that you provide us with the weed, coke, and quaaludes that we require, so we don't have to risk your sold out show being canceled because we brought drugs across the border. So that's how we got supplied drugs in for our Canadian dates. And all these promoters, Canadian promoters as well, were young entrepreneurial guys who were not adverse to taking drugs themselves, so they certainly knew where to get them.
Hmm.
And that's how we got provided drugs in Canada, and that's we didn't risk taking drugs across the border and risk getting arrested and the show being canceled. That's the
Sure.
magic briefcase.
That's pretty brilliant for sure. So after a few years with the Alice Cooper band, you moved on to George Clinton and P-Funk. That had to be some crazy times dealing with all those characters. Do you have a interesting story about George?
Well, at this point, George was selling out arenas, and I also had Bootsy's rubber band, Bootsy Collins, and when I put them together, they were selling out stadiums. And what I was able to bring to the table there right from the beginning, I suppose, was my logistical experience, among other things, with Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper had a very complicated production, and that required it running like a well-oiled machine, so nothing went wrong. Well, George had a very complicated show as well, production-wise. He had a huge spaceship, the
Okay.
mothership,
Yeah.
that landed on stage every night, and there were all kinds of special effects and props, and it was pretty chaotic compared to Alice Cooper. It wasn't that uh, precisely organized as the Cooper organization. So I was able to bring some sanity and stability to the production of it all. So they thought I was brilliant. I wasn't. I just had that experience of knowing how to deal with traveling with a very complicated production, and so I was able to make it a lot smoother for everybody on the road, including George. So they were pretty appreciative of that. But it was never the well-oiled machine, that smooth operation that the Alice Cooper production was, because it was, there was still plenty of craziness. But the beautiful thing about it, it all worked. I was really proud of the whole P-Funk thing. I mean, it was just an amazing show. The audience reaction to all of it was, I mean, that in itself was a payment enough for being there, although it paid very well too, from my perspective, being their booking agent. So it
Sure.
was all good.
So from P-Funk, I think you went on to the Runaways. It was Shep the one who actually got you in contact with the girls?
No, it was the notorious Kim Fowley.
Oh, that's right. Kim, that's right.
He was the manager and producer of the band, and he recruited me as their booking agent, and that was quite an experience. He was quite an experience as well. He was pretty. He was a rather, let's just say, he was a rather unusual character, but he was very entertaining. I was very fond of him, and that was a real adventure. I loved the band. The girls were great, and I remember he said, David, Kim Fowley said, David, book them in Japan. I think they would just do really, really well over there. And he was right. I put a tour of I don't know, 10 or 12 dates together. And then the night before they left, I get a call from Mr. Udo from Udo Arts, the major promoter in Japan. And he said, in his best broken English, Mr. David, just very important in Japan. What's that, Mr. Udo? Mr. David, girls on stage, wild yes. Girls off stage, wild no. Very important in Japan, Mr. David. I said, Mr. Udo, I will relay your message to the girls in very clear and concise terms so that they would surely get the message. Well, the message apparently fell on deaf teenage ears because these girls left a trail of wrecked hotel rooms, unpaid bills, and a slew of heartbroken Japanese boys all over the country and girls.
Sure. Wow. That's crazy. So, after that, in your book, you mention about dealing in the drugs and eventually getting uh, caught with that. So, how did that turn from being manager or the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll going together, and you just kind of went that route into the drug route as well, or?
Well, um, I ended up losing George and Boosie as a client, and I found myself with a very limited income at that point. So I decided to, I got a great idea. Maybe I'll become a cocaine dealer. Everybody I know seems to use it, and I'll keep my circle small, and I'll keep the risk down to a bare minimum. But it doesn't work like that. And I did eventually get caught, and I got convicted and sent to prison for. I think I spent about 14, 15 months altogether in prison. So that was not the highlight of my life, but it was a chapter in my life, and therefore uh, deserves to be a chapter in my book.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Now, I was also told to ask you about the one that got away in Guns N' Roses. So how was that? How did they work into your life?
I got a call from our old friend again, Kim Fowley, and
Ah,
he said to me, David, there's this band that's living in a storage locker just a few blocks away from you. Go check them out. I think they're really something special. Their name is Guns N' Roses. So I went over there to check them out, and I was um, immediately impressed with what I saw. I knew they were something special. Their songs were unbelievable, and they seemed to be extremely disciplined when it came to the music. Anyway, I mean, they were living in a storage locker, and other bands were living there too in other storage lockers. So the environment there, you can imagine, every night
mm,
was just a wild party. But during the day, these guys were very, very dedicated to what they were doing musically. They practiced several hours a day. The songs were terrific. Their musicianship was really, really high quality. I just liked everything about them, and the thing that really stuck out in my mind was they were the real deal. And what I mean by saying that they were the real deal, they were the real deal. They were never not Guns N' Roses. They were always Guns N' Roses, whether they were together or just hanging out individually. They were never not the band. They had this confidence in themselves, this state of mind that was very intoxicating, and it influenced everybody, including myself, that came into contact with them. You simply knew there was no way in hell that this band was not going to make it. They were just too formidable, just such positive thinkers about what the future held for them. It was a very powerful elixir. and I wanted to manage them.
Mhm.
I just knew they were going to make it. Uh, but that was one of those moments in my life where my life was a series of ups and downs. Um, I didn't really have any money at that moment. They were living in a storage locker, which wasn't really a good. It was great for rehearsing, but not a great place to live. There was no running water or bathroom facilities. I mean, they used to crash at my house oftentimes, or just to stop by, take a shower, clean up. I had to get him out of there.
Mhm.
So I went looking for money. I failed in that pursuit, and I had to walk away from the situation because I
Right.
was really in no position to be of benefit to them. And I didn't want to hold them down by making promises to them I couldn't keep.
Wow. So was that about 85-ish, somewhere in there?
Somewhere in there,
Okay.
um, I suppose everybody has a story about the one that got away. That's mine.
That's a big one, that's for sure. Well, since I'm based out of Cleveland, I have to ask, do you have any memories of coming to Cleveland when you were on tour with Alice or any or even P-Funk? And did you ever stay at the legendary Swingos?
I certainly did. Everybody stayed at Swingos. It was infamous for what was it called? Swingos Heartbreak Hotel. Was that the
I
full
believe
name?
so, yeah.
Yeah, it was very rock and roll friendly. Of course, we look forward to staying there all the time. We like Cleveland. Alice did very well in Cleveland, and my old band, The Happenings, did very well in Cleveland. We used to be on the Upbeat show all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Spiro, and I'm very good friends with David Spiro today.
Sure. Oh yeah,
We
Channel 5, yeah. Yeah, the Upbeat Show. I know all about it. A little bit before my time, but I know all about it for sure. And I've talked to David many times. He's still Cleveland legend.
Yeah, he is. He is. So yeah, we have fond memories of Cleveland. That's for sure.
Oh, great. And one more thing, speaking of Cleveland, what are your thoughts on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? They are finally, Alice got in a little while ago, but they still seem to be forgetful of some of these bands, harder rock bands in the 70s and things. But what's your opinion of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well, I think there's two groups of thought. I think one group feels that it's important and they should be more selective about who they choose. Like I'm sure plenty of people don't think Dolly Parton belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm
Correct.
ambivalent. I really don't have an opinion about that. And then there's another group of thought that feels um, that the whole idea of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is sort of a passe thing, and they don't see it being very relevant today. I'm sort of in the middle,
Okay. All right.
uh, and I don't think the Happenings are ever going to get in. But Parliament Funkadelic did, Alice
Yep.
Cooper did.
Sure.
Uh,
Guns N'
so
Roses, of course.
yes,
Yeah. So, all right. Well, very good. Well, David, I tell you what, you've led quite a fascinating life. Your book is fantastic, and
well,
and I,
thank
I wish you all the best on that. Do you have any plans of doing a book tour? We would love to see you maybe give a talk in Cleveland sometime.
Yeah, that I think it's going to happen in the spring. We're going to visit a bunch of markets. I'm sure Cleveland is on that list, and I would very much be looking forward to that. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with David Spiro about that, and
Yeah.
we're going to see when that comes to fruition if we can do some kind of hookup with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That would be relevant because they sell books.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Jan Wenner was just there promoting his book. He gave a talk and did a book signing. So, yeah, that
Right.
was very interesting.
So I would look forward to that, and I would look forward to hooking up with you too, Greg. I'd love to meet you.
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to it, David. Again, I wish you all the best with the book, and I'd love to meet you in person.
Great. I would look forward to that. Thank you so much. It's been
You're
fun.
welcome. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.